So today I'll be talking about the card I created of Hilma of Klint for the Marvellous Women card deck and how I brought that card together. So, like with every card, I did some research. I'd never heard of Hilma before, hadn't really seen her art, and what I found out was pretty interesting. So, Hilma of Klint was a Swedish artist and mystic. She was born in the mid 19th century. Um, She had a real affinity for the natural world. She loved it, and it influenced a lot of her later work in life. At the age of 20, she went to college to study the fine arts, and during that time, she became a member of the Five. The Five were five women who had similar artistic and spiritual leanings, and one of the goals of the group was to develop a connection to spirit. And they did that through holding seances and having other rituals, as well as engaging philosophies like theosophy. So during her membership time, Hilma developed a sort of unique connection to the other side and was called to create a series of paintings that contained messages for humanity. And she did this over a number of years. So that's the sort of basic overview of who Hilma was. And now I move on to how I pulled the card together. So usually I start with the face. In Hilma's case, I did a outline, colored in with just sort of blank mono colors, and then I add in the highlights, the contouring, and everything else required to make a face have that dimension. So in this left side panel, you can see that Hilma's face is her skin tone color is pretty flat. There's eyebrow ridge here and there's nostril here, but jawline, cheekbone, that doesn't really exist yet. So in this middle panel, I've added in the highlighting and a bit of contouring for the jawline. And as you can see here, I'm going to add in some blush or like that blood flow. Blush not in the sense that she wore makeup, but in the doesn't look like a zombie, she's alive sort of sense. So what I do, this applies for any like the sort of contouring thing that I do, is I create an actual shape and then apply a blur, and I apply the blur to the level that I think would look the most natural and dimensional. So there's a lot of like fiddling around in this part to try and get the blur to um, look realistic and subtle, but at the same time not so subtle that it doesn't look like it's there at all. Anyway, we move on to the jacket. So with her clothing, I based that off the most famous photo there is of her, and I colored the jacket this sort of lilac mauve color in that sort of purple region because it sort of represents spirituality, mysticism, magic, connection to higher realms, and that's what Hilma was all about. And as you can see on her shirt, she has these ruffles or pleats that are going on here, and as you can see, just like with the blush, I add in the solid shape, and then I blur it so it looks like the shadowing for like pleating or ruffles. The next stage is doing the background. So the background was partially inspired by her membership in the Five, um, an artwork she did called Altarpiece Number One Group 10 or X, and how I viewed Hilma. And I felt that um, Hilma had and believed that she had a connection to spirit and that it was her duty or role to take the messages she was being given and convey them in a visual way. And she could only have done this through her membership in the Five. And here I have like sort of symbolizing the women that were in the group and carrying out the rituals of connection. And lastly, with the altarpiece, the artwork, the original artwork had sort of a triangle, like a pyramid of it was rainbow colors reaching out towards the golden sun. And the way I saw it was um, its source energy and it's sending out its messages, its energy down into the lower, heavier realms. And it's all sort of breaking up into its own separate frequencies and messages for everyone. And that's what I think Hilma was. She was sort of like a receiver for those messages. So, bringing these three points of inspiration together, I created the background from this. And that brings me to the card itself. So this is Hilma, the final card, and her inspiration that she offers you is to be open to inspiration from realms unknown. Your brushstrokes will be what they will be, and truth is the ultimate ideal. And as I mentioned before, I didn't know anything about Hilma. I didn't know she existed. I didn't know about her art. Her art is really unique and unusual. She was very prolific in producing these series of artworks. She also, I felt, had a very interesting life and a take on life as well. And overall, I really enjoyed creating this card. I felt this was a wonderfully unique character to bring to life. Thank you for listening.